How's it going? Uh, Decided to do a stream. I kind of didn't get around to doing anything since I done the beginning of the Anglo-Irish one. Would have been flat out, like, because the lockdown is kind of unofficially over, I think, in this part of the world anyway. Well, in the rural areas anyway. So hope these are all sticking it out all right, because I know it's kind of weighing a lot of people down at the minute, and there's a lot of fighting and bickering and all that kind of crack. Like, but I don't know. I might just. I'm kind of going to ramble through this. I think, and just kind of give me thoughts on different things and the wee projects I've been getting done in the meantime and all that kind of crack. So I started out like I'm way out. Well, I'm in Donegal, like, rural. So I've plenty of space around me. So I just figured that. Well, like ever since I was young, like I've always I've liked the idea of kind of homesteading and survivalism kind of stuff, outdoors, being active as much as possible anyway, like, But I've always kind of had a reason to put it off, But I suppose now I've kind of very few excuses I can use, since nobody's at anything, everyone's kind of available to do a day if, given a hand doing something or whatever, like. And yeah, I've managed to get a good bit done over the last while, but whenever you're kind of working manual labor, it's a good time to kind of mull things over in your head, and you're chatting people that aren't particularly involved in politics or anything like that. So it's a good kind of way to, kind of bounce ideas around and see what the general population think of different stuff, and it's kind of interesting with the way things are going in Donegal. I suppose the fringe politics at the minute. It's kind of I have a lot of opinions on that now at the minute, because obviously, as all know about a fella asking for a lot of money. I got a message sent to me there the other day. Was it from the mid-April roughly, and it was 7 acres of rooster spuds going for free, and about half an hour away from this particular person. So the 5,000 or whatever euro kind of, it kind of smacks a bit the same of when a website was put up and it was promising the sun, moon, and stars. It's going to be what do you call it? A censorship-free version of YouTube for Irish nationalists and all this kind of stuff. And basically, it devolved into a poorly spelled WordPress that's massively overcharging for the actual crowd that it's servicing, and the amount that it's doing. So yeah, it wouldn't be, like there's a lot of all that crack, like, and it's kind of a case of I was listening to the video and it was just absolutely nonsensical. Like, it was Trump uses it and Macron uses it, and it's like, well, yeah, but they're not an independent candidate up in rural Ireland looking for 10,000 votes. Like, so he could literally, if he knew everyone that was going to vote for him and they were constantly active with him, maybe 500 quid a month website would be a usable thing, like. But it's or at the end, what is it? The envy expressed by minor online nationalists of Niall's success. Well, success, you see, I can't really say like if nationalists didn't do well in the last election overall, like, as far as results went, and for someone like, just on a practical level, if you have thousands of euros to throw at a campaign in Donegal, which, like, to be fair, I've heard of people running independent campaigns and they're putting a year's wages into it, 20 or 30,000 euro into it, but they're getting more than 0.75% for that return. Like, that's like, if you look down at the nationalist candidate, National Party candidate in Sligo Leitrim, he got 0.01% less than Niall did on an absolute a shoestring. So this idea that it's, success is I wouldn't really I wouldn't call it a roaring success like any more than anyone else. Like, and all that crack, about, oh, that was a, calling people amateurs, and it's like, man, if anyone's an amateur, if you're calling people amateurs for getting in a lot of, well, a good few cases anyway, getting more votes than you and a higher percentage than you, yeah, welcome to the club then. So, and especially since they weren't throwing, well, they didn't have the ability to if they wanted to spend that money, because they were getting proper posters made that weren't falling apart. They weren't paying 500 quid a month for a website that wasn't needed. It's just a bit like, I don't know, I could go on a rant about that, really, tell you the truth, like, because like being from Donegal, if anyone ever heard of the Donegal Mafia, it was Neil Blaney. Neil Blaney, see, like the old Neil Blaney, he was a fella that fought in the Civil War, the War of Independence, and all up in North Donegal. And he was, there's a big monument to him up there, like. But his children, that'd be Neil T. Blaney, who used to be the Minister for Telegraphs and all that kind of crack. He, like, exceptional man, like, unbelievable. Between him and his brothers, they created. There's a good documentary just on YouTube. If you type in the Donegal Mafia, it was an American, political analyst or whatever, came to Ireland, and studied how the Blaneys had turned Fianna Fáil in Donegal into an absolute machine. They basically created the modern party system the way it is run today, like, and that's right, gave up the Donegal. But like, it wasn't gimmicks, like, people aren't, like, as much as you want to think, oh, sure, here's a badge and a sash and a fucking bowler hat, you'll vote for me. Like, that works with, as I said, about 0.75% of the population. But to get into, like, 10, 15%, you actually have to get stuff done. And, saying I need, a couple of tons of spuds whenever they're going for free up the road, when there's already a fully stocked shop right next door to people. Like, my local gun club is going around delivering food. Do you know what to do? They get a shopping list. Fantastic. Like, futuristic technology there, like. And yeah, like, Jesus, I haven't even started on the unionist connections at the minute. I need to calm down to start on that, because, like, to claim, like, this is the same kind of crack as all this, Anglosphere jazz. Like, it's just a load of, like, how can you call it? You're not an Irish nationalist in that case. Like, you're not a nationalist at all, really. Like, you're just a pan-regionalist, I suppose would be the proper term. Like it's crazy. Like, at the beginning, I could see, like, when I joined a party when about three years ago, roughly. And at the time I joined, like, it was, it still would have been relatively small anyway. Wouldn't it's grown a lot in the last 3 years. But like, it's not a gimmicky party, because if it was a gimmicky party, I wouldn't be in it. I would have, turned up with the first few things, and I would have said, right, this isn't going to work, because it's clearly, gimmicks do not work. Like, unless you have, like, even the Green Party are a gimmick, like, and I'm saying that this as being a rural fella, they're a pure gimmick of a party. But the thing is that they have a state broadcaster that constantly pushed the green agenda for 6 months solid on the television. Every special on the fucking ear to the ground and all, was all about the Green Party, like the Green Party initiatives, at least. Like, maybe they weren't naming them outright, but saying, like, and even at that, it relies on ignorance, a lot of it. for that to work. Do you know, like imagine sitting down with someone who is talking about spuds, and imagine if there actually was a disaster where there was a famine, God forbid, in the country again. Like, is that really the person you want? Like, I don't know. That's just my opinion of it. I think like it's grand voting for independence, but independents are one person. And in this case, yeah, he's got a couple of international, we call them backers, that are, sorting out different logistical things for his little project that he has going on. But to turn around then and accept, like, it's it's not even infuriating. Like, it's just idiocy. Like, it is just thick to start ranting on about other groups. Like, no, like he was on about the National Party, and it was like, but sure, what has the National Party ever said about you? He was on about critiques live stream and all, and it was just like, well, yeah, like critique can say whatever the hell he wants. Like, he didn't slander you, first of all, in my opinion. And then he was on about that the National Party were like, what was this? I can't even think of the word. Defaming him, and it's like, what planet are you on? Like, but it just seems like it's like the last. I think he realizes that it's kind of, he either thinks it's going to take off huge, which I don't see happening, tell you the truth, because it's the same couple of people that's doing the same things from online for the last 2-3 years. Like, it's the same people constantly. Then he is, they made it the best of intentions. Like, it is a market. It's marketing, but it's just so tacky. Like, at the long and short of it, like, Dragon Energy. Let's give spuds to the Irish. It's like, yeah, it's just a gimmick. Like, someone said, he goes, oh, he gave me a bag of spuds, but there was a turnip with a bite taken out of it. And it's like, Jesus Christ, I don't understand it. Like, the amount of like €5,000. If you give anyone with a plan €5,000, like, it's like that old saying, leaders don't create followers, they create leaders. And all he's doing is handing out these like really, really low grade goodie bags, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, it's treating them like children. It's just so fucking. It's crazy. Like, when it harks back to, like, Brian Boru here is saying, republicanism was started by Orange Freemasons. Well, yeah, like Wolf Tone. I would. You can't doubt his dedication to it. Like, takes a lot to put a knife to your own throat to get out. Like, but I think the whole Republican, like the concept of it, like, say, like France, like, what's it on now? Like the 4th or 5th Republic. Like Albania became, or as it's our one of our biggest sources of illegal migrants, I suppose, at the minute. But it's the 4th Republic of Albania, and it's like Ireland held together for nigh on 100 years with a republic, and it's at the point now where like, if there isn't a constitutional change being made, there's one coming up. So it's obvious that the constitution doesn't work anymore, and it seems like it has to be changed. Like we went, like, if you look at the American, like, from foundation building blocks, like America was, if you read like the Federalist Papers and all that kind of crack, it was nearly set up to be a kind of a half-bred republic, half-bred monarchy. Like, they literally wanted George Washington to be the king of the country, like, and he said no. And the idea of republicanism, it's like an early version of what's the word, postmodern critical thinking. It's like a republic like the way I see a republic myself, like, and I know this isn't the mainstream idea these days, which is sad enough, like, but like the idea of a republic to me, the oldest republic that I've ever heard of is the Etruscans, and they have basically had a big giant stone tablet with what your rights and responsibilities of each and every person was, and it was basic. It was nearly like the Ten Commandments, you know. This was the Ten Commandments. Is nearly a type of a constitution, like, you know, and it's like whenever when it's not set in stone, when it's written on paper, you know, and I'm using that figuratively, like, but the paper can be torn up, or it can be changed, or it can be, you know, warped and, you know, worded differently, and like, and we're at the stage now, like, how many, like, it must be 25 or probably more fucking amendments to it, you know, and for most of, like, say the first 30, 40 years of the country, I think it changed once, did it? I'm not even 100% certain on that. I have it sitting here somewhere, but I'm not going to start flicking through it now, like, but it's yeah, it's a strange one, like a republic. Surely everyone would have the same rights in a republic 100 years ago as they do now, like, you know, even if you're including technology, surely a well-written constitution would be able to you know, a well-written constitution would be able to howl up against these things, you know, or that it wouldn't need, like, it's amazing, like, the amount of like, I'll put it this way, for the amount of protections that was put in to the constitution in order to keep the family steady, like like they have the woman's place is in the home, that gave a constitutional backstop basically to evicting mothers and children out into the street, you know. But that's going to go now. I think has it gone already? It's going to be going anyway. You know, they had basically then marriage was that, you know, the man, you know, as long as he wasn't being an arse, you know, wouldn't really have much of a chance of being put out of the house either. Like, and then it's kind of built on the idea of cherish the children equally. I suppose that they would grow up in a healthy, well, a healthy as possible household, like, but, you know, treated well enough, like. But yeah, I just think maybe at this stage, like, well, I suppose that's kind of a long conversation, is that this current constitution seems to be starting to come to the end of the line. But it's just that who or what can we put, you know, to safeguard these things like that we need safeguarded. It's a difficult one. Like, I wouldn't like to be the guy that's sitting in the room, or even maybe a group could be a bad idea too. Like, you know, I suppose the last one we had was nearly a one man job. Like, but yeah, I wouldn't envy trying to work that out. Like, working out a political policy is tough enough under the current idea without having to you know, rewrite the entire rule book while you're doing it. But like, that's why I always go back to the Shannicus, like, and there's a lot of, it's kind of like a lot of memes built up around it. You know, you have boys like talking about natural law and all this kind of crack, like, and, you know, that's all well and good, like, but the law of the jungle, it doesn't really, you know, it does lead to friction. Like, you know, the world is never going to be perfect at all, like, and Ireland's probably the same, but it's just a case of, you know, order tends to disorder, but you can keep kind of patching things up and keeping them going, like. But yeah, it's definitely not the desired effect that the people want at the moment. It seems like, you know, you have a lot of like, even that, I was watching a bit of that Eben Joseph, whatever you call her, the Zoom talk thing, and it was brutal. Like, that Ronan Lenton one, I was laughing, and then I actually just turned it off because I was like, I'm in too good a humor to be listening to this crack. Like, you had what you call him, that Pierce McHenry fella, and I was chatting to him on Twitter one night, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we need to fast forward." He said it himself, like, the fast fast track deportations for failed asylum seekers would be a good thing, like, you know. And then he's coming out against the only crowds that are saying it, like, and he's coming out then and saying, like, oh, we need to keep them at bay, basically. And it's like, Jesus Christ, these are such two-faced snakes, like, you know, bring St. Patrick back, drive them out, like. But I think then as well, like, there was oh Jesus, brain brew, Eben and Rona for attractive women. Well, I suppose, like, kind of a zombie, some zombie Chad would love them, like. But yeah, drag energy. We aren't really in a republic anymore. Like, we're even not even including the lockdown and that. Like, it's a democracy. Like, it's you know, like, this is exactly what the founding fathers of America said to avoid at all costs. Like, you know, it's like, even fucking Winston Churchill, who our, you know, stand-in leader, decided to quote, you know, like, even he was like, oh, was it democracy? Democracy isn't the best system. It's just the best one we've come up with so far, like, you know. But the thing is, like, you know, you can kind of see it. You know, like, I think it's fairly obvious to the people that's listening now, like, that it is kind of falling apart at the seams, like, and it's a case of, like, without the algorithm kind of hurting me, like, you know, Ted that wrote the book, you know, the letters, sent packages around. But, like, I remember listening to, or, you know, I listened to it, someone reading out his manifesto at one stage, like, and at the time I disagreed after about I think it was like 100 paragraphs in, roughly, that it was that in the end of a system, that the only way to build the new system, like, it can't be planned, basically, that it has to organically develop. And that's kind of why I like the idea of the Gaelic system as it was, like, which, you know, continues in a lot of ways until today, you know. Like, there's obviously, like, a bit of a legal system framework that is built up as well. Like, you have your, you know, your official documents and your forms and your, you know, yeah, you always have a legal you know, dimension to things, like. But the thing is like, imagine if that was worthless. Like, you have people that aren't Irish with Irish passports. You have, you know, like, one of the biggest recipients of, or nearly all of the biggest, well, a good few of the largest takers of the EU agri payments aren't farmers. You know, they just own sheds that they fatten up cattle in, and then they slaughter them, and that they're considered, they get agri payments, like, you know, and there's not a blade of grass about the place, like. So it's yeah, it really is it's a messed up system, like, and like, a lot of people, I wouldn't really be on the side of, oh, let's destroy it all, you know, like, you get the Connolly ones, and it's like, I do reckon some of them, if they would think for 5 minutes, they mightn't be the worst of people, like. But the thing is that they're very gung-ho, I think. I only met a couple of them in real life, and I just thought, Jesus, like, you are just stereotypical, like, you know, the smash the system and all this. And it's like, I was probably like that too whenever I was younger, and it was kind of a case of, whenever you realise that people have, you know, families to feed, like, it's kind of, you get a bit more kind of, well, do you really think that's a good idea to just start, like, tearing things down, like, you know? I think it's a case that, like, say now, if it kind of goes back to the Donegal situation, like, where you have one fella basically declaring stuff, you know, and saying all this crack, and then you have, you know, and arguing, kind of pissing into the wind, like, against a group that are setting up groups around the country that are actively working. Like, you know, you hear great reports back from a lot of the candidates that were running the last time, and they're flat to the mat, like, doing community work and keeping things going. Do you know, like, it's like the ideological side of things, like, is you know, once you have a solid ideological base, you can kind of, start to actually implement it. But you get, say, individuals like that just kind of start, they kind of just talk it to death, like, and then, that's Rich, me saying it now, like, I've been whinging for 25 minutes, like, but you have then people that are kind of like, well, let me see, how can we improve things? And it's the little things, like, and I'm not talking about a little bag of spuds, like, I'm talking about something that will bring people together is always a winner, and that's why you have the media playing out that angle constantly, like even the let me think, like for pride and stuff like that, like, it's like a social thing. And even like you have like some terrible stuff, like kids going around like grown men fucking shaking their arses in their face, like, and it's just like, how could an adult want that for their child? Like, but the thing is that because it's an event, basically, and to rebuild like a national kind of mindset into people, it starts at the very, very bottom where they know their neighbours, where there's like focal points for them to meet, whether it's a thing to meet in the evenings where they can do something productive, or like say, like, they always bang on about play parks, but the thing is that you could build the best play park out of the finest steel and the best rubber mats and all. But the thing is that a lot of times kids will go to it once and they'll be like, even at their age, they're kind of like, oh yeah, that's it. Like, it's outdoors, I think, is a fantastic thing. Like, and that's a gripe I have with the Nash, or not the Green Party, their environmental plans. Like, I live in an area here and it's got wilderness, lovely, lovely wilderness, like lovely mountains. And the Green Party are basically pushing to have windmill farms planted all over the top of it, with roads running all through it. And like, this is like a place that's heavy with curlews, like, and like they'll be on about like, oh, we need to produce more renewable electricity, and windmills are questionable at best, like, but then in in 2 or 3 years they'll be crying like, oh, we need to save the curlews, and all the while they're just ripping tax out of people, and it's just like, Jesus, at what point? At what point is it enough? Like, and like, from chatting to people, they are fed up. Like, I was chatting to a guy, and I think he is genuinely worried, like, that they are going to, like, he's an old enough fella, like, the two of them, they live in a lovely little part of the world, like, they've like nearly a little village of a half a dozen houses around them. I think they are worried that, Jesus, like, they are trying to get us out of our house, like, a nice wee rural place where everybody knows everything about the neighbours, like, everyone, whatever they work at, that's where the neighbours will go and buy whatever, like, to support them, and they look after each other that way, But then you have this here, like, hand coming in, this big green hand scooping all this money out, like even small practical things. I suppose it isn't that small, but in each people's wallet, like, that extra few quid that we could have had saved from the lack of tanks of diesel that we'd be using, like, that would be far better in our pocket than heading off to some German company to manufacture 100 tons of a windmill and then 400 ton of fucking, sorry for cursing, concrete for a base, and then driving that up a mountain, making a road, laying them one by one, and destroying the like the drainage and ecological kind of side of that mountain, like. And it's shameful, like, that people are listening to this crap, like, because, like, from even now, like, I suppose I'm kind of branching off here again, like, but with the lockdown, the gun clubs, like, as I said, they're out delivering food to the neighbours, like, they're not out shooting. And the amount of pheasant that's running around the place, like, I was doing a bit of work there, and like, every 5 minutes there was a pheasant calling from a different direction. Like, it was unbelievable. Like, I loved it. And like, you have rabbits and hares and all are coming back. Seen a big one of them falcons or whatever it was, some type of hawk, big grey yoke, beautiful animal. And it's rare. Like there's always kind of one or two around my area, but there's been more of them now. I think like because they're say like the rabbits aren't being shot. Like probably, I think the foxes are still getting snared, like, but that's probably not a bad thing really, because you know you kind of do have to keep a limit on their population, like. But like say now, like it all knocks down from uh, beef and sheep. You know that the arse in the market isn't too strong at the minute, like. So we have fellas that's cutting back on stock numbers. So that means then that you've got extra kind of uneaten grass and all that kind of crack, or you know it's not as grazed as heavily. And then you have wild animals able to live off whatever's left over, and then you have the predators then that's living off them, you know. And it is like a finely balanced thing to try and keep the current agricultural system going. Like like even that organic stuff that they're always heralding as the best way to go is it is pure and utter waste. Like you know it like I have the organic guidelines here, like, and in reality it doesn't work. Like it's basically a scam. I remember I kind of looked into it. I was thinking, oh, it'll be great. Like you know, I'll be able to like do a bit of permaculture. You know, I'll have chickens running around my orchard, and I'll have a couple of goats then clipping down in between some trees, like some native woodland. You know, and I'll be able to sell Byron skins off them, and keep a couple of pigs and a few native cattle and all this kind of crack. And but the thing is, like, that organic, it hates that with a passion. Like it does not want you homesteading. It still wants 100 acres of wheat. That's what it wants. Just wheat as far as the eye can see, or oats, or some type of grain. Then on the next tier down, you have intensely farmed beef and sheep. And then at the bottom, then you have the usual, like the guy that's just trying to, that wants to take a wee bit for himself, like, grow a bit of his own food and make a bit of money at the same time, like. And they're the boys that get fucking screwed the worst, like. I often, I'd be tearing my hair out of people online, like, it's usually like boys living in towns that have never seen a cow in real life, like, and they'd be on about, oh, sure, farmers they're wild, like, all they do is vote Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, and then they get these big payments and they're all rich and they don't care and all this. It's like, like, if you look at the west of Ireland, I think the average size of a farm must be, it's getting bigger now because there's so many fellas that's dropping out of it, like, but it's less than 100 acres anyway. And there's a hell of a lot of people that aren't farming 100 acres, like. So, like, you think about it, 100 acres is a million euro worth of land, like, and there's very few people with that, like. And the thing is that there's no point selling it because you can't make any money after that, like. And there's a kind of up in Donegal here too, like, it's very selling land is seen as like a disgraceful thing, like. We do have problems with the Orange Order. I might have to reword that for legal purposes. There are members of a certain organisation that they'll try and pressure certain farmers, like, say if they're dying, like, getting to a certain age where they can't farm anymore and they don't have anyone to leave the farm, that they'll start getting visits from certain individuals to kind of pressurize them into selling or just signing over money. Like, it was called color coding. Basically, is your farm green or orange? And they were doing that. They're doing that, like, say this all around Belfast and all that kind of crack too. Like, they'll buy up, where the marches are. They'll buy up all the houses in that area so that they can march without anyone objecting to it. And that's been going on for years and years and years. Like, and you do get the odd report back from people, like like where they have. I know the place that they have the annual financial report, like the members can go up and listen to how the finances are. And a couple of years ago there, a fella stood up and he was like, what about that £1 million mansion in London, or outside London? And the fella was like, oh no, that's personal. And there was an argument about where the money, this £1 million came out of. I think it was actually 5 houses for £1 million each. And this particular group, had a big falling out over it, like, and But this is how it's done in that system. Like it's the landlord system. Like it never went away, you know. And like there's certain ways like in an Irish mindset, and like the normies bite onto it, like whenever there's a pushback against that, but they don't do it. Like you can bring anyone to court, like that's neither here nor there, really. I think if it was a popular decision, there would have been people doing it anyway. Like, but if it wasn't an overall popular decision, so there was only one or two people that decided to do it. But in the Irish mindset, I think it's a case of like the boycott. Like that's basically an Irish tradition that you just ignore it. Basically, you pretend they don't exist. You shun it, and that's how I find people work in general. Like I haven't seen the only videos I've seen, because I haven't seen it in real life. I've heard of one report of a guard being narky with someone because of the traveling 5 kilometers or whatever, or 2 kilometers from home, and he just laid out the law with them, and that was grand. He could drive on. But then you get these videos then of like people screaming at Gardaí and stuff like that. It's just like who's that benefiting? Like, like if you're doing that, you're getting the hair in that guard's neck up, and they're just going to be a dick to the next person because you're setting the example, basically. Obviously there's a lot of level-headed Gardaí that'll just wave it off, like they'll be like, oh, whatever, like that's the rules, you have to abide by the rules, like. But then there's going to be, like, say, especially since they put in how many 3-week candidates out of Templemore, like, so you're dealing with them, like, and what is the point in roaring at a kid? Like, I know they think they're great, like, but the thing is that if you're roaring at them, the next car that pulls up that gives them any little bit of question at all is going to get it in the neck, and they mightn't be as, ready for a verbal argument as you were, like, So it's just kind of a case of, Jesus, lads, like, you got to be sound, like, and yeah, right, we don't like it. A lot of things we don't like, but you just got to get on with it, like, and you got to do it in a way that people actually, like, it's grand. You get a couple of YouTubers behind you, you get a couple of nice photographs and all, but what actually changes? Like, you've basically hardened people against you that you need to get on your side, and then you have a legal bill, and then nothing actually changes, like, and it's like in that amount of time, literally, if you convinced one person to your way of thinking, you've done more, without RTE, without a legal challenge, without any of this stuff. Like, I love the saying, we do it for free, but yeah, it's just the case of trying to instead of community groups, youth groups, these kind of, like, these are the things, like, start joining these things, like, and I'm preaching to the choir here probably, like, but it's a case of like, we're seen as outsiders, like, and we need to become the center fundamentally, like, in order to, like, whatever we think about the world, like, unless we're in it, we're not going to win it, like, and that means, like, you have a particular YouTuber from Cavan, and he's a great lad, and like, he's out and about in the tidy towns. He's he's the guy that's got the ear of the Cavan County Council more than 99% of any nationalist, like, and how is he doing that? Because he gets his hands dirty, goes out with a pick and stick and a plastic bag, and he physically cleans up his community, like, and that's just absolutely fantastic, like, and he's only a young fella too, like, a lot of the ones that do the tidy towns that be Euler, and it's nearly something to do, like, but to get, like, a young lad that just does that of his own free will, like, that's better than any court case, in my opinion, and I know you probably think I'm conflating the two things, but the grand scheme of things, Jesus, like, one got something done and the other didn't. That's the way I look at it, but yeah, hopefully post-lockdown, like, people are ready to roll and get, like, I know it's going to be a bit of a slog trying to get it back to the way, like, this is the thing I was going to say. I keep tripping over my words, like, because there's so many kind of loaded phrases, like, these days. I was going to say to get back to normal, but the thing is like, you don't really want that either. Like there's like the idea that the libertarians and the nationalists, like, it's basically like, we want the lockdown lifted. Why do you want the lockdown lifted? To go back to normal. Why do you want to go back to normal? Like, it's like, what are you going to do post lockdown that you can't do now? It's like, oh, I can't go to the beach, or it's just the principle of it. And it's like, yeah, but I was taught from a young age, after getting the arse handed to me on a couple of occasions, pick your battles. Don't just be fighting for, a rebel without a cause. Like, what is it? Like, it's wasted energy. It's just, smoke up the chimney. Like, and yeah, like, even in, I know a woman that'd be connected with O'Doherty up in this area, like, and like, never, no, not in 100 million months of Sundays would they ever be elected. And like, here, she's done some fantastic things. I'm not knocking her as a person, just saying that she's not electable at all. And that's just the way it is. Like, I don't think, like, Gemma herself, I don't think will ever be elected. That's my personal thinking on it. Like, I think that like the ACI thing was a good idea. Maybe not fantastically enacted, like, it's still basically two kind of celebrity leaders, and then I don't really know. I think it's people that turn up to things, but there's nothing actually being, there's not much substance there for me, like, especially, like, you look at even Gemma's tweets and stuff. It's confusing for an normie. Like, it's very easy to make her out to be a complete loon to anyone, basically, because, like, she was complaining that the lockdown needs to be lifted, because it doesn't exist. And then she's sending out tweets then saying, like, oh, this is how you cure COVID. And it's like, right, so like, that has just erased your legitimacy. As soon as that's pointed out to an normie, you're gone. Like, they're not going to take you seriously, like, whenever you're doing two-side talking out both sides of your mouth. Like, it doesn't work. Like, and I don't know, I've heard theories and rumors and kind of half-joking statements said about it, like, and it's just kind of like, I don't see a future in that arm of any kind of movement, really. Like, ACA, it's a good idea. Country is very corrupt in a lot of ways, like, but I don't think going for the extreme fringe, like, and yeah, I get it, people, to think that 5G is going to boil their minds and all this kind of stuff, like, and yeah, maybe, probably not, but maybe. And it's just kind of a case of there's Timmy down the street there, and he doesn't have a swing set, and neither does any of his neighbours. Can you make a swing? Because it's probably more practical than telling people about 60 or 70 gigahertz debt beams and all that kind of crack. Like, it just doesn't work. Like, to be contrarian, I would call it. Like, it's like a libertarian contrarian kind of thing. Like these people, like, these people, I don't mean that derogatory. I mean, it's like that. Like, if you had just the ideas without a name attached to them of Ron Paul and Pádraig Pearse, and you had them written down in a book, and the whole ACA had to read through whatever it was, and they'd never heard of either of these things, but they had to pick the words of Pádraig Pearse or the words of Ron Paul. Where would they gravitate towards? And I would say a majority of them would gravitate towards Ron Paul. Like, whereas a nationalist would obviously at least be on some kind of wavelength with the words of Pádraig Pearse, Like, and even then, like, you're reading, you have them. It just kind of blows my mind. Like, you have all these kind of ideologies in the States, like even from the 70s onwards, you have what's it called, the fusionists and the what is it, the liberal conservative libcons and all this kind of stuff. Like, and I think a lot of the people that kind of joined with the nationalist movement at the beginning, they joined on to this stuff because there was no actual movement that suited them. So they thought that they could just, because, in fairness, like when the nationalist movement was getting going again, it was obviously a bit nebulous, like, because people were still hammering out ideas, but you basically had this like little subset of people, and yeah, some things did overlap with, what you'd call the true nationalist thinkers, like, and it just kind of became a case where they kind of used them tentacles, like them little bits of overlapping ideology, or even maybe not even ideology, just plans, like, to kind of keep in with the nationalist movement. And then it started splitting down, and it's kind of at the point now where, like, like, could you really, in a historic sense or in a technical sense, say that Gemma O'Doherty is a nationalist? Like, that's my thing. And like, even for that, the Donegal boy, like, could you even say he's a nationalist? And then you kind of have two main parties in my mind at the minute that could claim the title of the nationalist party in Ireland, like, and I think one is head and shoulders above the other, like, because I think, like, you look at the work that the youth groups are doing, the national youth in the national party versus I haven't seen like, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I've asked a few people, but the Irish Freedom Party don't seem to be doing anything. Like, they seem to be more kind of concerned with. But I suppose there's the Dolores woman, but that was kind of, I don't know. I haven't actually got around to watching it. Like, but that was the first I heard of them since the election. Like, and I don't seem to, I haven't seen them out and about. Like, but anyways, Gemma got more votes as one person than all of the MP candidates combined. So you're talking absolute shite. This is DT. I'm quoting here. See, the thing is about that is that you have the national media, and if you have a boogeyman, like, Gemma is basically the boogeyman, and they're going to get votes because they're in people's minds. They're like mentioned in the car on the way to work. They're like, even for the court case, like, you basically have people that, yeah, definitely there is some people that completely agree 100%. There's also a very large number of people that would agree in principle with a soundbite that she might say, and you will get votes if that's played over and over. Like, that's where this whole no platform for fascists or whatever comes out of, because they realize that. But Gemma now is just the one that they can use as this is the leader of the far right, or whatever they want to call it on RTE. Like, that's my point about it. And then you have, basically, like, even the time, like, say now the Keelings thing, you had Philip Dwyer went out with the banner and two of the members, and like, that was brilliant. Like, that was on the 6-1 news, but you could see immediately the left hounding all the RT ones. What in the hell was that on? Why did you just let them Nazis on the 6-1 news? And it was removed on the 9 o'clock news then, like, and like, this is my point, like, is that if, like, anyone can be a contrarian, like, and a contrarian will get votes, but if you're trying to do something productive, that you're not, like, if you're trying to do something productive, it's like the old saying, eating bread soon forgotten, and the thing is that you have to build up an alternative that will give people what they need at all times, like, like a system, a national system. And you don't get that from you might get a bit of, like, sound bites and all that kind of crack. You will get from oh, the virus isn't real, or any of this kind of crack, like, but at the end of the day, that doesn't really actually change anything, like, and that was like the court case wasn't even listened to. Like the court case, it was a preliminary hearing, and it just petered out. That was it. Like, but she still got the airtime for it on RT. Like, she was the big figure, like the divisive person. And you'll get votes out of that anyway. Like, you won't get enough to be elected, but you will get a larger number of votes. Like, and it's just it's a completely different platform. Like, really, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not really a nationalist platform that Gemma is standing on. It's an anti-establishment platform, and it's just kind of a case where a lot of a good few nationalists would be anti-establishment at this moment in time. Like, but yeah, she's going to be used as a battering ram basically against the work. Like, like, even say if someone tried to distance herself or distance themselves from, say, something that's going on in a completely different movement, like, in this idea where it's like, oh, we're all in the same boat, but that isn't true. Like, like, at the end of the day, right? Yeah, we're all one nation. You can't really take passports into account anymore. Like, but like, an Irish person and I know an Irish person whenever we see them. Like, and we're all one that way. But at the end of the day, we're all individuals and families that make up that group, and we all have different modus operandis to get what we need in that larger grouping of families called a nation. Like, and like, unless you're actually able to, like, I'm repeating myself, like, but unless you're actually able to build a system where people are like, yeah, I would rather rely on you than the government that's there at the minute, you're not going to get any lasting. Like, yeah, right. Imagine Gemma gets, and I'm not particularly bashing Gemma, but it's just like, that's the big name, like, because it's on the TV all the time, basically. But it's like, yeah, you get elected. What happens, right? You can't get any legislation passed through because nobody will work with you. You mightn't even vote on a lot of stuff in the Dáil, so your vote is basically cancelled out by your TD. Then you have, like, say, other people trying to run against, like, just standing in firm opposition to her. Like, you gotta be, I don't know, you gotta grease it a bit, like, and get a bit of stuff done. Like I fully believe, like, it would be nice to get whatever the hell we wanted and implement it. But at the end of the day, like, even imagine if in the next election we get every candidate that we run. Like, say if we run fucking 20 people and they all top the poll, right? At the end of the day, that's still not enough. And we're going to have to do deals somewhere with someone to get some stuff done. Like, and it's the same on the county councils or wherever, even in a bloody committee for the tidy towns. Like, you're going to have to work with people, and having abrasiveness constantly is just not politically viable. Like, and it's just a kind of a case of who. At the beginning, yeah, you're going to have to pick the lesser of two evils. Whenever we do start getting people elected, we're going to have to work with a couple of independents, get technical groups going, so we get speaking rights. Well, I think I might have removed that now at this stage, but do you know what I mean? Like, but that's just an example. To get on boards and stuff like that, or committees in the Dáil, like, you're going to have to do deals with people. Like, oh, we'll, like, say our block of 10 or 20, we'll vote for your candidate on that particular issue, and then in return you can vote for us to get one of our candidates on that committee. And that's just how it works. Like, and it's boring, and it's fucking, it gets very complicated, and it can be a kind of a hair tearing out kind of thing, trying to think what's the best way forward. But that's just how it goes. Like, and that's what we have. Like, and that's what we're going to triumph over. Like, but it's just a kind of a case whenever you're, say, even if you have 20 people, like, look at Sinn Féin, a perfect example. Like, look at them now. They have, X amount of candidates. Did they have the most? I can't remember. But like, they are going to have to, like, the reason they're not in government is because nobody will work with them, or there isn't enough of them, and they'll still get their, Senate picks and all that kind of crack to get a few people in, but they're not going to be running the country. Like, so that, you know, like, yeah, yeah, it's not going to be, you know, an easy road for them, you know, trying to actually affect any change, whatever way they want to do it. Like, but obviously, maybe you know, politically, they'll probably prefer not to be in government at the minute. But I suppose that's a different conversation altogether. But there's 70K wasted. Was that the actual number though? Because I seen a tweet then she put out, and she was like, "Who's this?" She said it was fake news, but sure, you don't know who to believe. Like, I don't know. I would imagine like a preliminary hearing. Like, was anyone actually called for evidence or anything like that? So maybe they were. I don't know. Maybe the journalist was pulling the wrong numbers, or you know, they were saying, oh, you know, like maybe they thought, oh, it was 70,000, but it would have been 70,000 because they were pulling in fucking senators and everything to speak against her, like, you know. And from what I seen of it anyway, like the whole premise of the court case was, you know, it was a nothing. Like, you know, it was saying that it didn't exist, and it's like at this stage, like if you think it doesn't exist at all, like it's kind of, I don't know, like, and to be bringing it then into bringing it to fucking high court, then, like, you know, it's just kind of like, oh my god, why are you doing this? Put down the tricolour while you're doing that, will you? You know, that's just my opinion on it. Like, you know, anyone can wave a tricolour, like, but you know, at the same time, it's like even the idea, like John Waters is a smart guy. Like, I have his book here sitting in front of me, and you know, the thing about it is that you know, the fawning over the Constitution, like, it's just kind of like, oh Jesus, like, you know, it goes back to what I said earlier on, like that, you know, the Constitution, it's nearly outlived itself, like that. It's been chopped and changed so many times, like, you know, like that Constitution that he was speaking so fervently about, like, you know, that's the one that allows abortion, like, you know, that's the one that has, you know, gay marriage and foreigners flooding into the country. That's the Constitution, like, that's all completely above board. So I don't get the. I spent the last hour ripping it out. Sorry, like DT. I don't mean to be. I don't mean to be. Like, it's just my opinion. You know, that's all it is. Like, it's kind of a case of. You have to say something. You know. Well, I like. It's a case of. At the beginning. Like, say now you would have had, and I don't mean to be singling out Gemma, but it's just it's a topical thing. Like, you know, it's currently or very currently in the news. Like, you know, so I'm just giving my opinion on it. Like, and politically, I don't see it going fantastically well. Like, you know, it's like, yeah, more votes, you know, than most candidates. Yeah, definitely, but. I don't think there's a long-term strategy there, like that's going to actually be able to, like, maybe a flash in the pan, kind of get one piece of legislation changed or something, but I don't think it's going to be like a massive revolution out of it. Like, that's just my honest opinion. Like, it was like, but that applies to plenty of groups, like, you know, and it applies to people with no party affiliation, people with the same party affiliation as me, like, you know. I wouldn't agree 100% with stuff, like, but it was just kind of what it usually isn't on a magnitude that you're, you know, in high court over it, like, and you know, like, being from Donegal, I can see a lot of problems in the Donegal setup at the minute, like, well, you know, not within the party, like, but from people attacking the party, like, that were so-called, you know, describing themselves as the same crowd, like, you know, so I don't see that as a kind of a you know, a problematic thing. Like, you know, at the end of the day, if you're in a party, you're in a party, like, you know, when like, it makes no sense. Like, you often see people, and you know, like, they'll be like, especially back in the Renew days, like, you know, people would just sign up to Renew for the crack, like, you know, but they wouldn't be doing anything for Renew, like, and then they join ACI, but their Renew membership was still going, and it was just kind of like, sure, like, pick a side here, like, you know, it's like, you know, you can't serve two masters, like, And who else would do that other than Gemma? I think I'm going to read your message here. Just were people not saying that the whole point of getting politicians into it all is so they could rip into the establishment and get more airtime? Yeah, like, yeah, well, yeah, but you can do that in certain ways. Like, like, say now, who would be an example at the minute? Like, I have good respect for the man, but Danny Healy-Rae, like, he's not going to cause a national sensation with his debating ability. He gets things, he does what his constituents want, like, and, sure, as an independent candidate or independent TD, like, you're gonna, that's an excellent achievement. Like, he, like, down around Killarney and his part of the country, like, it's fantastic. Like, it's well run. It's good. It's a good, they're doing well, like, from their father's time down to them now, like, and, and they've nephews and sons and the whole lot that's coming up through the political rankings, it is a wee dynasty, like, and more power to them, like, because they've done it correctly, basically. But I don't see ACI on the track that they're going with it. Like, it's very easy to kind of shut down and not listen to a lot of things that are being said. Like, I used to listen to Gemma's YouTube a good bit, like, but it just kind of got a bit. I couldn't sell this to a voter. Like, nobody would listen to me if I started saying these things. Like, and yeah, maybe if you have a bit of profile and like, people are like, yeah, stick it to the man kind of thing. But for day to day, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Sinn Féin voters, well, maybe not Sinn Féin, but Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, even people before profit, and them kind of crowds that actually, fundamentally basically run the county council, like in Sligo, say, like, they that organise and plan. Like, you're not going to really be swaying them voters, like, and they're the people that we kind of need. Like, yeah, you could pick up a few Shinner votes, as a nationalist or whatever. You could pick up a good few independent votes. You could pick up a lot of votes of people that just don't want to vote for anyone, but want to vote for someone at the same time. But you need to start digging in. It's like undercutting the walls of a castle. Like, you have to get a certain bit of traction, like, and start taking out their strength. Like, do one thing. Like, imagine if, say, Gemma got like, ran a candidate in every part of the country, like, and she managed to get 25% of the vote. But the thing is that Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil, and Fine Gael all got 25% of the vote too. Like, she's still not going to be in government. But if you're able to undercut, like, say that a load of independents, like 15% of the vote went to independents, like, and then you took 5% off Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Sinn Féin, like, and got another 5% of it somewhere. Like, you're the biggest party. Like, you have a kind of a mandate at that stage, like, and it's just a case of, like, it is all optical, and it's like the politics is cloak and dagger. It's the most fickle thing in the world. Like, your best friend to be stabbing you in the back the next day, and that's just the way it is. Like, because people will step on you to get what needs to be done if they don't think you're going to do it. Like, and you get obviously then arseholes that'll just step on people just to get higher, like, as we've seen in the last few weeks. But yeah, I don't think it. I have no starry-eyed hope that it's going to be any smooth sailing. Like, and I think just a spade has to be called a spade, and there's poor political planning. There's very little to no tactics. It's basically like firing a cannon off, and yeah, it's like spectacular, kind of. I suppose it's a bit of a show or something, but it's not effective. Like, that'll be my main gripe. And I don't mean to be fucking harping on. I could talk about a lot of people, like, and I'm just a guy, like, and nobody has to listen to me. But it's just my opinion on, what is practical and applicable and effective, and not going to basically start dragging things down, like, while other people are doing great work, And maybe it is a case of just distancing, like, like, say now, like, a lot of people have different views on it in different parties, and it's like, yeah, well, we can work some kind of consensus, maybe even like you kind of have to work a consensus in a party, like, or else you follow the party line, basically. That's the whole point. But but inter-party, there doesn't really have to be that, like, it's what's it? Oh, Jan's here. Oh, come on, Jan. Good job with the youth groups as well. Hopefully you get hit the ground running soon whenever we get this lockdown kind of relaxed. Get the young lads out for a run. Thanks for watching. Exactly. Last true, Gael, like, you need the normies. Like, it's one thing going after this fringe vote. Like, we've locked out. We know that 1 in 100 basically will vote nationalist no matter who you put in front of them, by the looks of it. But it's a case now of, like, say if it's a 5-seater, and if you're able to get someone up to the point where, like, we will be probably at the next election, have a couple of places where you're going to have someone that'll, if we just continue the way we did the last time, we'll get 3,000-4,000 votes, like, and it's just a case of, well, obviously you're going to try and be, instead of nipping votes off people that are going to get eliminated anyway, like the Renewers and the N2s, you're going to have to get the votes off the boys that would be challenging you for the last seat, or even, maybe we might do even better than that, but you need to get the Sinn, like, look at Sinn Féin, like we're getting 50% of the vote in a lot of places, like that's mental. Like, I just thought it was absolutely crazy. But the thing is that they have swamped college campuses. They have absolutely swamped town council or town committees and public committees and stuff like that with their supporters, and they're literally just whinging. A lot of them. There's a few good Shinners, to be fair. Like, there's a few Shinners I'd love to get on board. To tell you the truth, even locally, but a lot of them have. A lot of the members, like whenever it was, what's it now? John Ducey. Is that the? I'm talking about Patrick Moriarty in the chat here. Is that John Ducey? Is that by Irish right-wing media or something? Is it? You let me know. Yeah, I was watching that Irish right-wing media. It was the Cultural Arena. Oh yeah, Sinn Féin and the Cultural Arena. Yeah, that's another one. But she even have that, like, it's like from my time in Galway, I Jesus, that was a harsh lesson to learn, is that the whole thing's fucking riddled with communists, and that's just the fucking fact of the matter. Like, you have Michael Dees types basically running the whole arts. Like, do you ever look into that the cinema in Galway, that art house cinema? That was a complete and utter con job. That was complete. I'd say that to the Pope. Like, that was a con job and a half. Like, it was how many fucking, was it 100 million spent on this little, like, 3-story building in Galway? And it was all these boys, like, the commie kind of, the champagne socialists basically that run the art scene in Galway, and a couple of developers that have been their buddies greasing palms, like, and they all got massive money out of it. And it was like nothing. I think it's still a shell of a building. I don't even think it was ever even built. It was meant to be finished this year, but it was probably meant to be finished 10 years ago. But it was just yeah, absolutely brutal. But that's how Galway is run. That's the corruption I would like to tackle, and you're going to get that by getting people into arts councils, by getting people into county councils, by getting people into, getting in, being able to have the ear of, like, say, a town planner, or, them kind of boys, like, or the town clerk or court clerk, whoever. You just got to get these people on side, like, to be able to go, oh, well, who are you chatting about that? Like, just for little bits of information, like, because this, fist in the air, oh, we're coming for you. It's just not going to work, like, in the long term. And it's like, yeah, it gathers up members, but like, eventually then we're going to have to, I suppose, show, bake the pudding and the proof is in it, like, so what's this now? He's an integrity. The guards. Fast put a bit of action. Is this the Patrick Moriarty again? Is this the Irish right-wing media fella? Sorry, I'm just trying to flick through the chat for a second. But yeah, I'd recommend that Irish right-wing media thing too. Like, I think he's like he's an unbiased enough kind of fella. Like, obviously, well, he's not completely unbiased, like, but he's interesting to listen to. I find, he kind of gives fairly well balanced views. Like, I don't know. I think it was I don't know. Someone put up a link to one of the streams there one night about the martyr, and yeah, started listening to him since then. Find him interesting. So yeah, I'm kind of, I don't know, I was kind of going to start talking about sheds at some point, but it's kind of getting on a bit now, so I might leave that for another day. And yeah, hopefully I didn't offend too many of you, like, but yeah, it's just my opinion, and like I started talking about the Donegal Mafia, and there's a way to do politics, and there's a way not to, and there's a way to be a sensation, and sometimes the two don't overlap. Would be the two the main point, I suppose, of what I ended up talking about. But yeah, hopefully now, like, we're coming into a point where we'll still be able to do group work in our local communities from Monday on. So I hope you are all planning on doing something. And it's DT. Oh, the next night, DT, I'll be on. I don't know. I'll get in contact with you somehow. I don't think I could send messages through YouTube anymore. But yeah, sure. The next night I'll drop a link on, and you can come on. I'll let you give your review. I find your videos interesting too. So, but yeah, I suppose I'll leave it at that, and I hope you are all ready to hit the ground running and get as much done as possible, because the next election, although it's kind of it seems far away now, like, them days are closing in, and they're going to close in very quick at the end. So hopefully we all get to work, and I'll see you all the next night. Good night.